This video is one of the most esoteric videos on the entire channel. Before watching this video, one will have to have a firm understanding of the concepts behind the Part 2 theme called Leah and Rachel as presented in the Lurianic Kabbalah, as well as certain understandings that are derived from Likutei Yira. There were initial reservations about the production of this video, but that it may not wait for another timeline or another lifetime, and perhaps a cloud of glory, it is revealed and presented here. That being said, this video contains some of the highest lights of emanation ever openly discussed or revealed. Let us begin. In a variety of videos on this channel, I've discussed the concepts and reasonings behind the Part 2 themes known as Leah and Rachel, and how the Netzach Hod Yisod of one world equal to Chokmah Bina and Das of another world. An example, the Netzach Hod Yisod of Ima formed the Chokmah Bina Da'as of Zerayinpin, and it was also made known that Leah and Rachel are formed from the Malchus of Abba and Ima respectively. An example, it was stated that Malchut is always connected to the Yisod. This is revealed in the Zohar and Bereshis B explicitly in two places. With that understanding, we can see that the Netzach Hod Yisod of Ima formed the Chokmah Bina Da'as of Zerayinpin, and that Malchus, which is still connected to the Yisod being entirely feminine, emerges out of the main body of Zerayinpin and forms the Part 2 theme collectively known as Leah. The same thing occurs here with the aspect and qualities of the lights of Abba. They descend even farther into the Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet and emerge at the place of Tiferet, forming the Part 2 theme collectively known as Rachel, whose height is from Tiferet of Zerayinpin to Yisod of Zerayinpin. This is the secret behind why Leah is a permutation of Ele, hinting to Elohim, or the quality of Ima, and Rachel, meaning sheep or whiteness, hinting to the aspect of Abba. Now, this is a basic and classical understanding in the Lurianic Kabbalistic system, but how do we relate these things into existence and see the Atzil level? For the level presented is certainly the level of, or either the Bria, the Torah of Berea. And we have only discussed these matters from tree, an example worlds, fruit, an example sphirot, containing seed, an example Part 2 theme. So now that we're in the garden, how do we get to the level of the Atzil? If you have been a viewer of this channel, you will have undoubtedly seen the concept of tree on top of tree. An example, how the 22 letters correspond to the Pani and Acher of the Sfirot themselves. An example, the fronts and the backs. And it will also have been explained to you how Malchut is connected directly to Kether. An example, when we analyze the linear progression of the Sfirot, Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, we get to Malchut. And it continues, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Fe, Tzadi, Kof, Resh, and Tav. It was expounded upon in Omech Hamelech and in prior videos, and we learned essentially that the tree of the Panim, meaning the faces, is concealed in this one Sfiroth, an example, Kether, as it relates to the tree of the body. This concept is called tree on top of tree, Eitz al Eitz. A brief example of it is shown here. Now, for the sake of our video, we'll be paying attention to the connection of Malchut and Kether. And the understanding here should be that on one level, Malchut is concealed within inside of Kether. This is hinted at in that Malchut is called Ani, and Kether is called Ein, and this is a seruf, or permutation, of those exact letters. And again, the principle here we should understand is that on one level, Malchut is concealed inside of Kether. Now, as we just investigated and understood, we learned in the construction of the Partufim of Leah and Rachel that Leah emerged from the Malchut of Ima, mainly from Da'at, and Rachel is in the secret of the Malchut of Abba, which emerges from Tifreth and whose height is to Yesod. It should be noted that Malchut is called Et, Aleph to Tav. And so on each of these 4 points, you will find Aleph to Tav. This refers to us to the 22 letters. Now let us get to the Atzil level, the level of emanation. It is written, what can I witness to you and what can I liken to you? Now, regarding Kether of the body, it refers to the head. And to receive the first insight, we learned that Malchut is concealed inside of Kether. Well, Malchut is called Et, and Et is Aleph to Tav, an example, the 22 letters. And so what we find is that Malchut concealed inside of Kether is the secret of our thoughts. For our thoughts are a series of words, and words are formed from letters. Thus our head, an example Kether, conceals the 22 letters in the secret of our thoughts. The second level, we learned that the Partufim of Leah emerges from Da'at of Zerampin, or an example, the Da'at of our body. This is the secret of our lungs, as it is shown here. Now, Et again refers to the 22 letters, and the light of Ima is the light of the Neshama. Neshama means breath, and is in the secret of the verse, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, in which breath here means Neshama. What we find here, as opposed to the 22 letters being concealed inside of the head, an example thought, so no one actually sees your thoughts, we find that in the secret of the Partufim of Leah, the 22 letters emanate out of the place of the lungs through the secret of the breath. And this is the secret of our speaking. And this is the secret of Tabuna and Bina, which means understanding. For the very purpose of the 22 letters emerging from Da'ah and the secret of the breath is for communication. And this is the secret of the Partufim of Leah as it relates to this world and this reality and how we may see the Atzil level. Now we get to the Partufim of Rachel. Rachel, which was the secret of the Malchus of Abba, which is wisdom, is in the mystery of wisdom gives life to its possessor. And so what we find is that the 22 letters here manifest themselves in the secret of something living. And so we find on the body, in the place of Tifreth, the midsection of the body, and the height of Yesod, is the baby. And the baby is also formed from the 22 letters. An example, the concept of a tree on top of tree, in which we find a tree of the face and the kether of the tree of the body, as was mentioned earlier. Thus, the baby is the secret of Chaya, meaning something living. And the 22 letters are manifested here in the secret of the Partufim of Rachel, in the secret of the womb. Its height being to that of Yesod teaches us that the baby emerges from this place in the secret of life. And so what we learn from this, the Partufim and the secrets of the Mother's Torah, which are relatively understood as something abstract, becomes very clear at the Atzil level, the emanation level, when we understand that Kether conceals Malchut. And so when we look at the Kether of our body, an example the head, It conceals Malchut, called Et, Aleph to Tav, an example, the 22 letters. And so our thoughts are concealed at the level of Kether. And we find Et here. We find Et at the level of Da'as, as has been shown, which is the secret of the Partsufim of Leah. And the light of Leah is the light of the Neshama, meaning breath. And so we find that the 22 letters are formed out of that breath and emanate outward from the body, as Leah emerges outward from the body of Zerampin. And the purpose here is for the light of Ima, which is the sphere of Bina, or Tavuna, meaning understanding. Therefore, the purpose of the breath manifesting the 22 letters is for communication. And there we find in the light of Abba, which is the Partsufim of Rachel, the secret of the baby, because the light of Abba is wisdom or Chokmah, and the secret of wisdom gives life to its possessor, the quality called Chaya, living. And we find the 22 letters manifested as Eital Eitz, the tree on top of the tree, forming the shape of the baby's body and the secret of the quality of life. With that being said, there are far greater things that could be mentioned here, but this is not the place or the time. Shalom, Salam.